In November of 1911, 54-year-old railroad engineer Calvin Hatcher had already spent 3 decades working freight lines through the Appalachians. He wasn't a superstitious man. He had driven locomotives through floods, snowstorms, and derailments. But there was one stretch of track he refused to talk about for the rest of his life: Widow's Pass. The incident happened on November 14th. Calvin's freight train number 72 had departed Charleston shortly after sunset, carrying coal and timber eastward. His crew consisted of conductor Leonard Pike, fireman Harvey Dillard, and brakeman Curtis Bellamy. By midnight, they entered Widow's Pass. Fog covered the mountains. Visibility dropped to less than 50 yards. Nothing unusual. At 1:18 in the morning, Harvey suddenly leaned out of the cab. Someone's ahead. Calvin immediately applied the brakes. A lantern moved slowly beside the tracks, back and forth. Someone was signaling. Railroad regulations required trains to stop for distress signals. As the locomotive hissed to a halt, the lantern disappeared behind the fog. Leonard grabbed his own lamp. Probably somebody stranded. Calvin and Leonard climbed down, but after searching nearly 100 yards in both directions, they found nothing. No wagon, no horse, no person. Then Leonard pointed toward an old signal post. A rusted lantern hung from it. Its flame still burned. Calvin frowned. Who lit it? The post had been abandoned since 1884. Neither man knew. Then Leonard noticed footprints in the mud. Bare footprints. Human dot leading toward the forest. But stranger still. Another set returned. Except the returning footprints were backward. Not upside down. Backward. As if whatever made them had walked out facing the opposite direction. Neither man mentioned it. They climbed back aboard. But Harvey looked nervous. "What took you so long?" Calvin frowned. 5 minutes. Harvey stared. "You've been gone nearly half an hour." An argument followed. Both men checked their watches. Harvey's watch read 1:52. Calvin's read 1:24. Leonard's read 1:25. Nobody understood. Then Curtis shouted from the caboose, "Who changed the signal lamp?" Everyone froze. The rear lantern should have been red dot. It was green. A dangerous signal. Someone had changed it. But no one admitted touching it. And according to Curtis, someone had been sitting inside the caboose while they were stopped. Someone he assumed was Calvin. But Calvin had never entered the caboose. Before anyone could speak again, the telegraph line above them began humming violently. And somewhere beyond the fog, another lantern appeared, moving slowly toward the train. Calvin Hatcher would later tell investigators that the second lantern should have been impossible. There were no roads near Widow's Pass, no farms, no stations, nothing but mountains and abandoned track maintenance cuts. Yet through the fog, the light continued, approaching slowly, steadily, not swaying like someone walking, almost floating. Harvey Dillard saw it first. Then Leonard, then Curtis. All 4 men stood silently in the cold mountain air. Nobody spoke, nobody moved. The lantern came within 50 yards, then disappeared, just vanished. No footsteps, no voice, nothing. "Did everybody see that?" Harvey whispered. Nobody answered. Calvin climbed back into the cab. "We're leaving." The locomotive slowly gained speed. But 20 minutes later, Curtis Bellamy came running forward from the caboose. His face had turned white. "There's somebody back there." Leonard frowned. "What?" "In car 9. Everyone froze. Car 9 was loaded with lumber. It was sealed before departure. Curtis swallowed. "I heard someone knocking from inside." Harvey laughed nervously. "Probably shifting cargo." "No," Curtis replied. 3 knocks. He paused. Then somebody called my name. Nobody spoke. Eventually, Leonard grabbed his lantern. "Come on." The 4 men walked along the moving train, stepping across couplings until they reached car 9. The seal remained intact, untouched. But as they stood beside the car, knock, dot, knock, dot, knock, all 4 men heard it. Harvey nearly dropped his lantern. Then a voice came from inside. "Curtis." Curtis staggered backward. The color disappeared from his face. "That's my mother." Everyone stared. His mother had died 2 years earlier. Another knock, then silence. Leonard inspected the seal, still unbroken. "There can't be anybody inside." But Calvin noticed something strange. The chalk number on the side no longer read 9, it read 11. He frowned. Didn't this say 9? Leonard nodded slowly. It did. Harvey looked confused. There is no car 11. The men exchanged nervous glances, because train number 72 had left Charleston with only 10 freight cars. Calvin counted again. 1.2.3.4.5 6.7.8.9.10.11. He counted a second time. Still 11. Nobody understood. Curtis stared at the extra car. I've never seen that one before. Neither had anyone else. Its paint looked different. Older. Almost black dot. No company markings. No number plate. Just rust and weathered wood. As though it belonged to another railroad entirely. Then Leonard suddenly became pale. He pointed toward the steel wheel assembly. Look. Stamped into the metal was a date. A manufacturing date. October 1891. Harvey frowned. What's wrong with that? Leonard's voice trembled. Because this car burned in a wreck 20 years ago. Silence. Every railroad man in West Virginia knew the story. Midnight freight, number 9, 23 dead. No survivors, and one freight car had never been recovered. Car 11. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then, from inside the black car, knock dot knock dot knock dot, and this time, everyone heard multiple voices. Not one, dozens dot, all speaking at once. Then one voice rose above the others, soft dot calm, and very close. Conductor. Calvin's blood froze, because it wasn't calling Curtis, or Leonard, or Harvey, it was calling him. And it used the exact nickname his wife had used before she died 6 years earlier. A nickname nobody else knew. The knocking stopped. But as the train rounded the next curve, station lights appeared ahead. Calvin's relief lasted only a second, because according to the timetable, there shouldn't have been a station there, not for another 40 miles. And hanging above the platform, illuminated by oil lamps, was a sign that made every man aboard stop breathing. Black Hollow Station, a station that had been abandoned since 1888. Sheriff reports and railroad records would later disagree about what happened next. But one detail appeared in every account. Train number 72 stopped at Black Hollow Station, and Black Hollow Station wasn't supposed to exist. The platform stretched alongside the tracks beneath a row of dim oil lamps. Its wooden sign hung crookedly above the waiting room, Black Hollow. Calvin Hatcher had passed through these mountains for 30 years. He knew every station, every water tower, every siding. Black Hollow had been abandoned in 1888 after a landslide destroyed the access road. Nobody had lived there since. Yet there it stood, perfectly intact. Warm light glowed inside the station office. Leonard Pike stepped onto the platform first. Maybe they rebuilt it. No, Calvin whispered. They would have told us. Curtis Bellamy suddenly grabbed Harvey's arm. There are people inside. For silhouettes moved behind the windows, sitting quietly, not moving, not speaking, just watching. Then the station bell rang once. Nobody touched it. A moment later, the office door opened. An elderly station master emerged, carrying a lantern. His uniform looked decades old. He smiled politely. "You're late tonight, boys." None of them answered. The man seemed puzzled. Something wrong. Calvin stepped forward. "Sir, what station is this?" The old man laughed. "Black Hollow, of course." Leonard's face drained of color. "What year is it?" The station master frowned. 1887. Nobody breathed. Harvey whispered, "No." The old man smiled again. "You boys staying long?" Then Calvin noticed something hanging inside the office. A newspaper. Its headline froze his blood. Train disaster kills 23. October 1891. Below the headline stood a photograph, and among the railroad crew pictured was Leonard Pike. Not younger, not older. Exactly as he stood now. Leonard stumbled backward. That's impossible. Suddenly, the four figures inside the station rose together, and every one of them turned toward the window. The glass reflected lantern light, but no faces. Nothing. Just shadows. Then one lifted a hand and slowly pointed toward car 11. The bell rang again. Once, twice, 3 times, and every light inside the station went out. Black Hollow disappeared into darkness. Then something slammed against the inside of car 11, hard enough to shake the entire train. Calvin immediately ordered everyone back aboard. The locomotive roared to life. Nobody looked behind them. Nobody wanted to. For 2 hours they rode in silence. Then Curtis entered the cab carrying papers. His hands trembled. I found these. They were passenger manifests. Old ones, yellowed with age. But train number 72 wasn't a passenger train. Nobody understood where the documents came from, until Calvin saw the date. October 17, 1891. The day of the Black Hollow wreck. Names covered the page. 23 passengers, and 23 crew members. Harvey frowned. There weren't that many crew. But Calvin had stopped reading, because halfway down the list, he saw his own name. Calvin Hatcher, age 54, engineer, below it Leonard Pike. Curtis Bellamy, Harvey Dillard, every man aboard, their ages, their jobs, everything. Leonard stared in horror. We weren't even born in 1891. Then Harvey noticed something else. At the bottom of the manifest, status, not yet accounted for. The firemen nearly collapsed. Suddenly 3 knocks echoed from the rear. Knock, knock. Everyone froze. Then came footsteps, not outside, inside, walking across the roof of the cars, slow, heavy. Metal creaked overhead. Something moved from one car to another, toward the locomotive. Curtis grabbed his revolver. The footsteps stopped directly above them. Then silence, for nearly 30 seconds. Then a voice came through the roof. Not loud, almost gentle. "Tickets, please," Harvey screamed. Leonard crossed himself, because they all recognized the voice. It belonged to Raymond Kessler, the conductor killed in the Black Hollow disaster. The same man from the newspaper photograph. The same man buried 20 years earlier. Then something slid beneath the cab door, a single train ticket stamped, Black Hollow, one way, and on the back in fresh ink. Someone had written 4 names, Calvin, Leonard, Curtis, Harvey. One name had already been crossed out. Nobody remembered seeing it before, but they all recognized it, Raymond Kessler, as though he had finally reached his destination. And now 4 seats had become vacant. Near dawn, train number 72 approached Fairmont Junction. The crew had aged 10 years in one night. Nobody spoke. Nobody slept. But the worst was waiting. Station Master Benjamin Lowry greeted them. His expression changed immediately. "Where in God's name have you boys been?" Calvin frowned. "Since last night," the station master stared. "Last night." Then he showed them the newspaper. Date: November 21st, 1911. 7 days had passed. The crew had disappeared for an entire week. Railroad officials had already begun searching for wreckage. Families had been notified. Nobody could explain where they had gone. But that wasn't what terrified Calvin. Fairmont workers counted the freight cars. 10, not 11. Car 11 was gone. Always had been. According to records, it had burned in 1891. Investigators dismissed the men's stories: stress, fatigue, mountain fog, hallucinations. But one detail nobody explained. Curtis Bellamy never came home. Not because he vanished. Because he was already home. His wife swore he'd returned 3 days earlier. He sat quietly at the kitchen table. Never spoke. Never smiled. Then left again before dawn. Nobody saw him afterward. Years later, after retiring, Calvin Hatcher finally agreed to speak about Widow's Pass. Only once, in 1938. His grandson asked him why he refused to stop trains there. The old engineer stared out the window for a long time, then quietly answered, "Because something boards at Widow's Pass, and if you stop long enough, it starts checking tickets." Calvin died in 1941, but according to railroad maintenance reports, even today, engineers passing through Widow's Pass sometimes hear 3 knocks from behind empty freight cars. And old dispatch records contain one final mystery. Every November 14th, at exactly 1:18 in the morning, an unidentified signal appears briefly on abandoned telegraph lines. It consists of only 2 words, repeated over and over. Train arriving, no train has ever been found, and no dispatcher has ever admitted sending the message.